and they're wondering, how do I get a job during the summer, or how do I get it and, finalize my CV for grad programs. So that's what I'm going to be going over today, but like I mentioned, after this, be open to discussing anything you guys specifically want to see at future meetings, because this is the main thing we wanted to cover this semester, along with obviously our conference and everything. So if you guys do have any comments or concerns, please put them in our freshly made comments box, and we have little slips that you guys can comment about as well. So just TC, you can start the thing now.
Yeah.
Oh, you're good.
I just did.
Oh, good job. That is. Yeah.
Do you have to actually turn it on?
Isn't it already on? Maybe it's on this one.
Maybe it's this.
That was nice. No? Yeah, it should be loud. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, cool. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so let's get started. Let me open here. Okay, so I'm just gonna dive right in here. This is a wall of text. Some of you might have seen this presentation before. I tend to reuse it because this is something we always cover during the spring, like I mentioned earlier. I am not going to go over everything on this slide. This is mostly so you guys can access this on social media later and use it for your reference as well, because there are some good links and things on here that you can really use to embellish your resume, your CV, your cover letter, which are the main things I'm going to be going over today. But I did definitely want to touch on this. So I'm going to concisely go over some of the things, and then if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask at the end. So a resume, as we know, is pretty much a summation of your education and work history and other skills that you might have that might appeal to employers. Resumes are usually used in that exact context at a job application. Academic positions tend to prefer CVs, and as I'll mention earlier or later, that is going to be one of the main differences here. So there are 3 different types of resumes that you usually see. There's chronological. If you have had a lot of positions, you're going to tend to use a chronological resume. It's not even necessarily sometimes that you have like 10 positions per se, but if you tend to keep like steady work for 2 to 3 years, and then you move positions, or even if you moved up in a position, let's say you started off as like a sales agent and then you go up to like area manager, you can still use a chronological resume because your title has changed. If you're having a lot of changes going on throughout your position in your career, you're going to be using the chronological format. It's, I think, the most common type, besides combination is kind of debatable. It features often as well. But functional is if you've been at one position for a long time. Usually that's when that's going to come into play. So a functional resume focuses on the skills you gained at usually few positions, like 1 to 2. The reason these are good is because if you've been at a position a long time, sometimes that's because you want to be there. Crazy. So you're not going to have like a lot to put on your resume besides the one position that you've listed. So functional resumes are good for that reason. You can say, I've gained customer service skills, accounting abilities, etc., working at this position. And it kind of highlights your skills as opposed to positions. Combination is just what it sounds like. It's a combination of both. I would say if you've had, multiple positions or changed titles a lot, obviously you can use a chronological like I described before. If you are somewhere in the middle, like your resume isn't quite one page, it's like halfway there, but you still have had more than 1 to 2 positions, lots of people tend to use combination for that reason. So your resume should be, this is just the standard stuff they'll tell you at career services or probably have been drilled into you for most of your life by your mom or whoever. So resume should be 1 page. That's because whoever's looking at your resume doesn't really want to read a whole essay on, what makes you great, even though you probably are great. But you definitely want to keep it down to 1 page. Having worked in HR before, when I was screening resumes, I would always mostly look at the highlighted, it should be like a bulleted format, so I would look at what they thought was like the highlight of their achievement or career. Another good tip is to make sure that you are making your resume relatively uniform. Don't use Comic Sans, make it, don't use half Times New Roman, half Arial. Make sure you're using a uniform format. All your headings are the same font and all your body paragraph is the same font. Obviously, you want your title to be a little bigger. They want to know, they don't have to squint to see whose resume they're looking at. But pretty standard stuff. Just keep it clear and concise so your employer or your professor knows what you're trying to convey to them. And make sure that there are no spelling errors in your resume. That's a good way to get it thrown out immediately, unfortunately. I know some tactical errors Word doesn't always pick up on, so it's always good to proofread it yourself and then give it to someone else to proofread. Lots of people that are not you tend to catch errors that you made more easily. That's like a psychology thing. So make sure that your resume is staying updated. That's kind of obvious, but some people forget and use the same resume for everything. It's pretty convenient, but you definitely want to make sure that you're including all your newest achievements on your resume. And don't include your high school level positions unless it's necessary. Some people did really cool stuff in high school, so like if you invented the computer or something, yes, put it down always. But generally, you don't want to include like your Burger King, McDonald's, Taco Bell employment experience unless you have to, or you think that a skill that you retrieve from that experience is quite the highlight on your resume. And this is another thing, know your audience. So you want to make sure that if you are filling out your resume for, I don't know, like maybe you are applying for like a fast food position or a serving position, in that case, the Taco Bell becomes relevant, because you are using the same skills in that job. But if you're applying for an academic position, you want to highlight your coursework or any research experience you might have, or grades or projects you've done in your class. So know your audience when building your resume. You're going to want to put the things that are more relevant toward the position you're applying for toward the top. And that's going to grab the eye of the person that's scanning your resume more quickly because they have keywords that they kind of put in a resume and look for. And I know at a lot of jobs, including some of the ones that I've worked at in HR, they have even a program that they go through and it kind of looks for those keywords. And based on how many keywords are in your resume, it indicates what percentage match you are for the company. So if there's a job posting and they're like, we want a dedicated worker that knows SPSS and Microsoft Office and Adobe. And then your resume biography is dedicated worker who knows Microsoft Office, SPSS, and Adobe. It will be like 100% match. So that's kind of like a trick that people use. They go on Indeed or Google and look for job postings, and then they look for the keywords in the job posting and they put it in their resume. That's actually a really good idea. Just word it in a way that it doesn't look like you copied and pasted in your job description in your resume. So a CV, as I mentioned earlier, is more for academia. And CVs, the main difference is that it's going to be longer and it's going to highlight a lot of things from a single experience. Kind of like a functional resume, not really. A CVs also have the functional and chronological type that I mentioned earlier. Same for a CV that it is for a resume, but there's, instead of a combination, there's an academic CV. That's going to focus more on your academic achievement. That will also be in your chronological and functional CV, but you can use CVs for different things. So let's say you're applying for a grant, you might use an academic CV because you're going to be highlighting your research experiences, your rewards that you received at conferences maybe, any quantitative data that you've analyzed and what your results were from that inquiry. as opposed to if you're applying for a professor position at a university, you're going to want to include more of your practical work experience. So usually the academics are used for applying for, I said education or research-based roles, but it's kind of like education within education. Like if I'm applying for a grant or if I'm applying to present at a conference as a keynote speaker, I want an academic CV. Other than that, it's pretty much the same as resume. It's still going to look at your skills, it's still going to look at your work history, and it's still going to look at your education. It's going to specifically highlight, like I mentioned, that education aspect. That's why they're longer. They're going to be like 2 to 3 pages. Again, this is some standard stuff. So your CV should include all of the information your resume does, pretty much, and same tips as before, you know, your audience, proofread, et cetera, et cetera. And I included this tip on the resume as well, but make sure you're using those action verbs. So whenever you're writing out a skill or an experience that you have, let's say that you analyzed quantitative data that led to significant results. That's a good way to put it, like analyzed quantitative data or quantified this data, as opposed to I did an analytic review of these results. Like it kind of makes it sound, if you word it in that way, that you were passive to the experience. You want to make it sound like you've taken more of a leadership role. Even though that kind of seems silly, just the way that they're reading it in their head, it makes it sound like you're more in control of the situation if you're using those ED verbs and, you know, the active speech. Kind of went over this already. Another reason that a CV might be used is for medicine. So lots of doctors use CVs for a similar reason that researchers use CVs. It's because doctors can go up in position a lot and have a lot of medical-based achievements while you're in research. You're probably doing lots of publications, similar to how doctors are probably working on a lot of, I don't know, like sciencey breakthroughs, or maybe they've worked on a particular patient with a more complex condition than another patient. It's just quantifying your achievement obviously becomes more like focused on a single experience as you move up in the field, because you can only move up so far, right? If you're the CEO, you're not going to be like, I moved up from CEO to, there's really no more vertical growth that you can kind of experience. So you're going to quantify, you know, the things you did while you're in that position, because you're already like pretty close to the top at that point. Okay, and kind of breezing through this, but feel free to stop me at any point. Another thing that I put on the last slide is you can always ask if a job or an academic position or a medical position or whatever you're applying for wants a CV or resume, but when in doubt, I say use the resume because that's pretty standard for applying for a position. So I added this slide from last semester because I didn't know about this until just today. So I was researching resume examples, and I know you can do a quick Google search and it will bring up like all these images of resume templates or examples of popular resumes, stuff like that, and it will give you the traditional, you know, John Doe, how you should format your resume. But something that's really cool is myperfectresume.com. I'll be posting this on social media for you guys. You can search any position at all, and I searched some like weird positions like ethnographer or like dolphin inspector or whatever, and they have one for everything. So they kind of suggest what verbs and I guess like experiences you should be highlighting for your position. So that is pretty cool, that website. If you're using a resume, I highly recommend it. It's just a good resource. Another thing is for CVs, I think more people are like kind of stumped on where to start for a CV versus a resume, because a resume has kind of been like instilled in us since high school, like you have to build your resume. But a CV is a little bit different and more unique to academia. Something I would like to point out is that if you're applying for grad school and you need to know how to write a CV, oftentimes they list their master's or PhD students on their website. And with that list is a copy of every single student's CV, and they got in. So you can use that as a really good reference. I definitely used our website. I went ahead and linked the IO program at UCF. Obviously that's personal to me, that's the program I applied for. But it at least has, you know, examples of CVs, and just overall, I think that is still a good resource for psychology. But I am not sure about the other programs because I haven't explored their website. I didn't apply, but I don't know why, you know, if the IO program has all the master students in their CVs that the clinical program wouldn't or the human factors program. So definitely do a quick inquiry into that and just a section for current master's or PhD students, and usually if they do have that section, they'll have their resumes and CVs. That's a really good resource for you. If you don't find that section at the school you really want to go to, you can always email the grad students and the professors and be like, hey, I'm really interested in applying. I saw your research on this. Make sure that you show your interest versus just saying, hey, can I have your CV? Because they might skip over that email. But if you show your interest in their work, or if you show that you are enthusiastic about attending their program, most grad students and professors, I don't see why they wouldn't email it to you. Likewise, if you guys want a copy of any of our resumes for this purpose, I can definitely send you guys mine as reference. But yeah, that's just a really good reference in general, especially when applying to graduate programs. I cannot stress that enough. I went through everyone's CV. I'm like, wow, everyone did invent the computer. So. So the last thing I'm going to kind of go over, sorry to rush here, we did get kind of a late start, so I don't want to hold you guys too long. I know midterms are going on right now. So anyway, so writing the cover letter is pretty much the intended purpose of it is to let the manager know that you're an ideal candidate for the job, and it kind of brushes over everything that you really want them to know from your resume. They're going to use that as a reference, like what should I pull from your resume or CV based on the cover letter. So it should be, the same format as resumes and CVs. It should not have spelling errors. It should be clear and concise. This is just most, like professional work, even if it's like a research paper or an email to your professor, make sure it's free of spelling errors and clear and concise. That will just be for the best most of the time. So this is an example of a cover letter. Unlike the resume and CV, I don't think it really has to be like the full one page. If you really word it well and highlight what's important in your resume and CV in the cover letter, then I think that's fine. And that's kind of like what the second bullet is covering there. As long as you're highlighting the important information and you include a way for them to contact you, be it your email or phone number or whatever it may be, that's going to give you your kind of best results. Something I've noticed a lot of employers are using now, and even master's programs are requiring the master's students to do, is make a LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the hot social media for your 40-year-old boss that doesn't use social media, and they love to use it to screen applicants. So my LinkedIn is very underdeveloped. Actually, I wish I had a better LinkedIn to give you guys an example, but you can look at like most major employers, and employees on there will have LinkedIn. I definitely recommend making one, especially if you're applying for a position after you obtain your degree, or like a higher level position at all, or if you're applying to grad school, because eventually grad school is going to be like make a LinkedIn. And I know for some grad schools that's like the project, especially if you're getting your MBA. So that's just a good thing to have nowadays since everything is going so virtual. Other than that, though, just definitely include an email and a phone number or somewhere else that they can reach you. They probably won't show up at your house if you include the address. So again, this is just kind of going over everything that I mentioned before. But a couple of things that I did not mention, you definitely want to include a closing that indicates that you're pretty confident you got the position if you are confident about your credentials, and you definitely want to come off that way to your employer. Even if you are like really nervous about it or you're not sure if you're exactly the most qualified candidate, still end your cover letter with the fact that you look forward to hearing from them soon, or you can reach me at this number. I look forward to speaking with you about X position. Just in general, you want to make sure that you are giving off the impression that you believe you're confident or you're confident in the position, because if you don't think you're confident, then the HR manager going over your resume sometimes is able to tell from cover letters. Another anecdote from when I did my HR internship, someone sent me a cover letter that said, "I do not know if I should be working here or not, but please accept me." And I kind of felt bad, like throwing it away. But my boss was like, "No." So, yeah, it was kind of funny. I don't know. Sometimes maybe your boss will get a kick out of it. I got a kick out of it. Like if I was the hiring manager, I'd be like, "Oh, well, maybe I'll interview them." But that's probably why I'm not the hiring manager. So definitely like try to come off like you have the credentials necessary. Another thing is do some research for the company that you're working for, similar to how you would pull up the IO master student CV to like model your CV after theirs and kind of, look through what you think the CV for a qualified candidate should include. Same thing, I mentioned this earlier, if you use those keywords, do the research about a company, it can come off as more qualified. And another thing is, this is again, I'll include psychology. People, if they think that you care about them, are more likely to care about you. So if you say, oh, I see that you have been the director of X and Y company for 5 years, and I see that your credentials include this. Like, I think I would make a great asset to your team as my complementary credentials include this. If they see specifically that you did research on their company or them, they're probably more likely to give your resume a second glance, even if it does lack a little bit in qualifications compared to other applicants, because it shows interest. And at the end of the day, that's what people are looking for. They're looking for interest. That's why people who go into the place of business that they're applying to tend to get the job over people that sit behind a screen and submit their application. So you can always submit your application online, but I highly recommend getting in contact with one of the people that will be going over your resume or will be able to grant you a position, because that will definitely give you a head start in the workplace. So I know I kind of rolled through that. I don't want to keep you guys too long because I know I have midterms and papers due. So you guys probably have midterms and papers due. So thank you for everyone that showed up today, because I know it's a stressful point in this semester. Just a quick reminder, I don't know if I saw anyone walk in, I tend to ignore the door. So if you haven't turned in your application, definitely turn them in. Quick update about our upcoming events though. So I did say I'd go over SEPA, I'm gonna go over that. So we were doing it Friday and Saturday, based on the poll, that's when the most amount of people could attend. So I think it's partially again due to midterms that lots of people couldn't make the Thursday date, and Sunday is just kind of a weird day because Monday's the next day. I don't know, maybe you got church, amen. But it's going to be the whole event is from the 20th to 23rd, but we are doing it the 22nd and 23rd. If you want to go on your own, you totally can, but it is kind of expensive. So we'll be funding it if you go the 22nd and 23rd. If you took the poll, we'll be emailing your night's email to give you priority to RSVP to this event. And that's just because the people, that showed the initial interest, we want to give that opportunity to you to attend the research conference. We can only take 10 members. So after a lot of discussion with SGA, it turns out we are going to have to mostly fund this event ourselves. Give me 1 second, okay. So it is going to be priority to those who took the poll, and then we will RSVP on Eventbrite after all the members can decide if they want to go or not. Okay, what was your question?
Where is SEPA?
SEPA is Jacksonville, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
At University of North Florida in Jacksonville.
Yes. So to get
Sorry,
there,
that was for SEPA is also in Jacksonville, but at the Hyatt Regency.
oh yes, there's a hotel.
Yeah.
I was.
Okay.
Um,
We're both in the same city.
Yeah, so to get there, we are going to have 2 officers going, and we'll kind of each lead a group of 5, we think. That way, if you guys have varying interests of the conference itself, you can either travel, I think it'll likely be me and Madison, but we will see, I guess. But we'll have a different schedule. So if you guys are interested in more of what Madison is attending, we'll go with her. Interested in more of what I'm attending, you'll go with me. And we're going to try to cover most of the fields of psychology so everyone can feel included. Or if you want to see something in specific, feel free to comment box it. And one of us will make sure to go to that event if you've looked at the SEPA itinerary.
I have that itinerary with me.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so if you want to look at the itinerary as well, Madison has it. Another thing is that we will be carpooling there. Me and Madison will both be driving. We can each take 4 people max. My car can fit 5 people. Probably won't be fun to fit 3 people in my back seat, but it can fit 5 people. It is capable. So if you guys do not want to drive there, we're already attending the conference. Otherwise, we will be including a question on our email, Eventbrite, RSVP thing. If any of you guys would rather just take your own car, let us know, and also let us know if you can take some of the members there, because it is going to be a kind of carpool community event thing once we go there. And we're staying at the hotel for 1 night, obviously, when we arrive there on, are we arriving the 21st or the 22nd? 22nd, right?
The Friday.
Okay, so when we arrive on the 22nd, the Friday, we're staying in the hotel that night, attending the 23rd, and then we'll be driving back home. If that doesn't work with any of your schedules, I recommend not RSVPing because, you know, we only have 10 spots, so we want everyone that can make the full time to go. Another thing is, I believe Friday we're leaving pretty early, right? Like 5 a.m.
We would have to wait. till
Awesome.
5.
So if you will die if you get up, like not at 5, you can still come and you can still RSVP if you can make the actual conference time. But let us know, and you're gonna have to like maybe drive yourself if another member doesn't, you know, attend at that time, or you know want to arrive later as well, or you can carpool with them. So that is how that's going to work. I have all of your names on the Google form that you guys filled out. That's why I included the mandatory include your first and last name. And if you gave me that, then I have your next email. If you're a due paying member, only due paying members can attend SEPA. So if you haven't paid your dues yet and you filled out the form and you really want to go to SEPA, this is going to be our conference for the semester. So make sure you turn in your dues by at least Friday. Is Giovanna going to be able to be at her office hours?
I'll go in for it.
Okay, gotcha. So at least Friday, and I believe those end at 12:30. So or Thursday during my office hours, or Wednesday during Madison's. All of those are good days. So make sure that you turn in your dues if you want to go to SEPA. Next kind of minor announcement, on the 9th we have the Susai fundraiser. That's a sushi place, but they do other things, like they make sushi tacos, which is cool, and they do like bowls and everything. It's in the same plaza as Flippers, if you attended Flippers. And it is the 9th of March, so if you can go to that, please come and eat sushi with us. Sushi is good. Orange You Happy is going to be the 20th. I included that. The prep day is the 14th, if you want to show up to that. Usually, like I mentioned, you have to go to the prep day to attend the actual event, but sometimes the lady that leads it will just have you at the event if they have enough little paper oranges to hand out. I know last one got canceled, so I'm sorry about that. That's actually headed by the Mental Health Association of Central Florida. It's not anything we directly do. So if you follow their Facebook, they'll probably have like more updates for you guys. I guess keep track of the weather on the 20th, and if it's raining, just like they usually cancel it if it's raining. So if it's like 80% chance of rain or more, probably like don't show up. So that is pretty much all I have for you guys though. Is there any general questions about SEPA, etc., questions about the presentation? This will be posted as usual on social media, so go ahead.
Where's the orange one?
Oh, it's at Memory Mall on campus. The prep day is, I believe, at the Mental Health Association of Central Florida. So that is listed on their website. I'll go ahead and like cross-post the event to our Facebook so you guys have the address and everything. Any other questions? I know it's midterms, get out of here.
So I'm gonna leave mine for like